Good evening. This is the meeting of the Salary Commission. We are calling it to order at 6:07 p.m. And I'm going to do a roll call. Commissioner Huber,
Present.
Commissioner Ben,
Present.
Commissioner Hampton, Commissioner Schmidt,
Present.
Commissioner Horde.
Present.
Can I get a motion to excuse Commissioner Hampton?
I motion that we excuse Commissioner Hampton.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, welcome back for another year. Moving on to action items. The first order of business is to elect a new chairperson for this year of Salary Commission discussions, which is from October through approximately December of 2023. How we typically do elections is someone will nominate another person or you will elect yourself and there will be a motion and a vote. And now I open the floor for any discussion and nominations for elections.
I nominate the forensic accountant for there, Commissioner Schmidt. I think she'd be fantastic
Oh.
council member. Commissioners.
I
Commissioner Schmidt.
appreciate that.
Thank you.
Do I need to accept?
I second the motion.
I also third the motion. I think you're an excellent choice.
Do you accept though? I mean, are you- oh,
No pressure. Wow. I guess I do. Thank
okay.
you.
So I heard a motion from Commissioner Huber and a second from Commissioner Ben. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, thank you.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Don't hurt me.
the meeting is yours.
Good thing you're.
Well,
Yeah.
I am going to first order of business, make sure that I do a lot more research on the Roberts Rules of Order.
The fact that you remember that is a step.
There we go.
Right.
Oh, okay. So do we at this point need to approve the minutes from our last commission meeting on December 1st of 2022? I think everybody has a copy, correct? Does anybody have any changes that they would like to put forth?
I don't see any.
I have nothing.
No, I'm in agreement with the minutes as they are.
Okay, I don't have any changes either. Can I get a motion to approve them?
I motion to approve the minutes from the Thursday, December 1st, 2022 Salary Commission meeting.
All in favor?
Second.
Oh, second?
Throw me down to the second.
And then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Yeah.
great. Oh, great. So moving on to new business, we have a wonderful packet that Ms. Warrington sent out that shows the compensation, the current compensation for comparable cities with a mayor council. And I would want to open the floor to anybody's thoughts. I think there's a lot of information to review. But I don't know if anybody has any first thoughts.
Would you like for me to go through all of the attachments and give a brief overview and summary of where we're at in the budget as well?
That would be
Okay.
fabulous.
I will do that. Okay, good evening. So the first attachment in item A is the Salary Commission information packet. It's a cover sheet. It kind of summarizes the background on where we've been as a commission for the last couple years and how decisions were made. Of course, that is not binding. You are here today to discuss and make some decisions for 2024. So this is just for historical purposes. On here are some attachments. We'll go over there in a brief moment. And then under here is supplemental information with links. Since we have printed versions, you're unable to click the link, but I can email those out or we can go to those and share our screen today as well if you'd like to look at them together. But they are the municipal code for our salary commission if you need a refresher. The the Census Bureau of Statistics for the City of Lake Stevens profile. We've got the MRSC Open Public Meetings Act basics, just for refresher training for running open public meetings, since we only do this once a year. And then the link to the city's budget 2024 presentations. So that will bring me to a quick little update on the budget, which is currently the mayor's preliminary budget was presented in September. The council met at a council mini retreat in mid to late September and discussed the budget. And then there have been a few work sessions on the capital projects budget. And most recently, another presentation by finance last session to go over the budget again and taxes and those kinds of things. And tomorrow there will be another budget presentation to get the last work session completed for the budget, and public hearings will start in mid-October, end of October. So currently in the next attachment is the comparable cities. And then the next attachment is consumer price index. So we will walk through those first. Excuse me, the first attachment is a large spreadsheet that you shall be familiar with. This is the comparable cities that we have used. We actually updated the comparable cities last year from based off of the 2022 non-represented salary survey that we did in 2022. And that attachment is the following attachment, which lists those cities and how they were derived from the parameters that those cities came from. And in this large spreadsheet, you can see this is the roll up basically of all of your other attachments. So all the other attachments are just yours for background information. If you wanted more information than this is all of it rolled into one spreadsheet so you can compare and contrast. I did link these to those tabs manually. So I did double check my work, but there is human error. So please let me know if you see anything that looks off in calculations. Starting from the top, you have the county, the city, the estimated population as of April 1st, the 2022 assessed value, and then the assessed value per capita. Then you've got your sales tax for 2022 and the sales tax per capita, their form of government, the number of regular meetings, the monthly salary for the mayor is the next category. And that looks like it cut off the top. And then the next column is whether the mayor is full or part-time. And the last one right there is the city council monthly salary, and then any notes that I found during my research. Below that is some calculations for you just to review based on your average, median, low, and high. And I only pulled the full-time for those since we only have a full-time mayor. So I left out the part-time in those calculations. And the monthly salary for the city council as well. Then the bottom is our city statistics using the same categories as above. And then below that in the gray, there is a calculation so you can see what 50% above our population is and 50% below our population is, and the same all the way across the board. That's 50% above and 50% below for all those categories. And then to the right, you'll see those are our current statistics. So 9890 is our mayor's rounded monthly salary, and then the city council's current monthly salary. I will note on some of these notes, once we go into specific cities, I don't know if this time is appropriate or not.
I think it is.
There was, I'll make a note that Edmonds Salary Commission is currently meeting. Their statistics were from 2019. They do have a working draft of their recommendation on their website. And that's where I pulled my information from, and you're welcome to look at that, or I can send you links to that later. I didn't want to overwhelm your packet with all of the research behind some of the numbers that weren't included in the EWC survey. And then I'll also note that Mount Vernon has an interesting setup. They have an ordinance where their mayor is paid based off their experience by term. So their first term is paid at a lower rate. Then the second term, they get a raise. The third term, if they serve a third term, is the maximum salary. So their current mayor is at the maximum salary. Their incoming mayor is going to be at the lower end of the salary, which is denoted in the notes. So I just wanted to clarify that so you knew what I meant in that note section.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And I do have a copy of that ordinance as well. If you're interested in looking at that, I can send that out in our next packet if that's something you guys would like as well. Okay, so moving through the next few attachments, I'll just run through real quick. I've already mentioned most of them, but we've got our cities used in the non-represented salary survey in 2022. The next attachment is the AWC survey data, and it's a larger, looks like this. That's where most of this was pulled from. If it's not on here, then I had to go custom research or contact the cities or, pull their ordinances and whatnot to get their salary numbers and notes. Then the next one is your population data. And I've already explained that the packet contained the last 10 years of population. And for the printed copy in front of you, I've minimized that. So you just see the last 3 years. So you could actually see the numbers because they're very tiny. Highlighted in yellow are the cities that are summarized on your giant Excel spreadsheet, and orange is us. And so what I've done is I expanded the view so you could see all the counties that those comparable cities hit. So you have King, Snohomish, and Skagit here. And that's the same throughout the last couple tabs. The next tab is assessed value using the same method. And the tab after that is sales tax. In your printed version, I've sorted them all by highest number to lowest number from 2023. Just so you're wondering how that was sorted. Or 2022 in the case there wasn't a 2023. So the most recent year. Okay, and then the last paper you should have is the CPI for our area from June to June 2022 to 2023. You'll see it in the bottom right-hand corner. If you follow down to bi-monthly data, right below San Francisco, Seattle, Tacoma, Bellevue. You go all the way to the right because we look at CPIW. You'll see that June to June was a 4.5%. That brings me to my last point, that during the budget discussions, the current recommendation for a cost of living increase for non-represented staff is 4%, which is approximately the 90% of CPI. Currently, the bargaining status, we have 2 open bargaining units for negotiation. We've got Teamsters, which is a carryover from last year. We are very close to settling that agreement, and we've also just opened and started negotiations with the Guild Commission, which is the police officers and sergeants. So since those are still underway, there's no way to determine what those will be. The Guild non-commission is set at the 4% CPI for 2024, which is about six positions. That is the end of my presentation. Chairperson Schmidt, you want to take it back over? And if you guys have any questions, let me know.
Alrighty. So I do know that we all received this packet last week. So does anybody, I want to kind of open up the floor to anybody's observations, kind of things that they noted and maybe want to speak about and start a discussion?
Look at me for.
I mean, when you look at cities with populations, our mayor is underpaid. When you look at it by sales tax, it feels like we're right in line. So it makes me very comfortable with where we landed last year. And I'm just personally thrilled with what we did for the city council and abolishing the meeting
Requirement.
requirements. So I think we made some really good decisions after some really robust conversation last year. So I think the information that we have to work with now is even more thorough. So I think we're set up to make a good decision.
Ms. Worthington, the admin was happy about getting rid of that meeting minute thing and didn't have to worry about that anymore, I assume. I think that was-
Payroll was very happy.
Okay.
Yay, payroll
Yeah,
likes that.
And the clerks, yes, because we help receive the meetings for the meeting stipends and trying to track timesheets down.
We got some affirmation.
Yeah,
Mhm.
lessened
Yeah.
the burden a little
Yes.
bit,
Yeah.
right? Okay,
Yeah.
Then you can
which I
cut
think was the goal that we
Yeah.
were all working towards.
Yeah.
Although we have a new payroll technician that came in June, so she doesn't really know any better, so.
it.
Well, she's welcome too.
Yes.
Yeah.
We can
Very
put it
good.
back into the perfect situation.
So last year, this non-represented had 6.5% last year, is that correct? 6%?
We ended with a 6% for non-represented,
Yeah, and then we had 4.5 for the mayor, and then we.
for
Four, I think.
4%.
Four.
So, all right. And this year it's 4% is what's being discussed for the budget for the non-represented.
I did have a question. I just want to make sure I'm recalling correctly. I know that going off of that CPI and the June to June is kind of the precedent. And has it always been around 90% or was it 80% before?
It's always been around 90%.
I just wanted to make sure.
CPI, however, last year for the CPI was 9.6.
It was very
Nice.
high. I
Um,
recall. Yeah.
So I think 8.5 would have been the 90%. However, we did a large salary survey. And so there was some hard decisions made about CPI on top of a salary survey.
Okay.
Because we were
That's
so
right.
under, a lot of the positions were underpaid compared to the market. So the decision was bring those positions up to market, or a little above market, and then we did a 6% COLA to try to balance the funding because it was, anytime you give raises, it's expensive, so.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of compromise there on that 90%, so that, I don't know what the percentage was exactly. I think that we just looked at the cost analysis of all of it at the end of the day, and the city council made that decision
Okay.
for that reason. But other than that, historically, it's been 90%.
Okay.
That's the only variance I've seen in my data that I have.
Thank you. So if I may say kind of what I did with the salary comps. I did, this is why I'm looking at my computer, just so everybody is aware.
Okay.
I put in the packet we got last year. I just kind of like added a column of prior year, who's on the top, Arlington, I believe. The data that we got was 7,491 and for the mayor's salary, monthly salary, and now it's 8,248. So I kind of just put in the prior year monthly for the mayor. And then saw like what percentage was to just kind of see like, hey, were we way out of line? What were we looking at?
Great.
And I do think there were a couple things a little bit skewed, right? There was, I believe 2 places. This is Mukilteo, Monroe, where everything stayed the same, which is obviously going to skew and Everett. Skew things a little bit. But then at the same time, we have Arlington had a 10% increase for their mayor. So I did kind of do the average of that. And it was coming of the ones that I could put something, right? And it's looking like it's coming out at around like 3.7 for the mayor overall with these comparable cities.
For last year's.
For last year, yeah. So,
Okay.
we voted 4%.
Mhm.
There, we have that the skew, I have a little bit of a hard time with that, but right around 3.7. So we're pretty in line. which made me again kind of feel good because it was a hard discussion and it felt like, were we making sure that everything was equitable? But that was one thing I wanted to look at just to see an overall picture. And I feel like that's helpful for me to just think like, okay, were other cities at 20? Were other cities way higher?
Mhm.
I will say that the cities that are frozen over a couple years, it's because their salary commission meets every 3 years, or I think there was one city I saw that meets every 6 years. And so
Wow.
they determine the salaries in advance, or they just determine the salary and freeze it for 3 years. That's, up to them.
Is
So
that an option? No, I'm just kidding.
our salary commission, our code meets once. a year.
I know, I'm just kidding.
You
So
said,
that's just the explanation.
okay, you said Mill Creek Monroe and what other city?
So Monroe, Mukilteo at the very bottom of the,
All right, those are two part-time positions, right?
yes,
Yeah.
they are. So they wouldn't have been in the average, median, low, high, right? Because that would have been only full-time. And the other one was Everett, which is full-time. Which does not increase, did not increase. And then I did also do it for that average, median, low, high. And median wise, right? Even though if I average everything we have on here, which would include part-time, which would be why it would be different. The median, I come out with a difference of about 7.6%. So if we're talking, like 3.7, 7.6, there's different factors for everything. And as Mrs. Warrington said, right, when there's salary commissions that don't meet, I was wondering how that 100% just stayed. It's not necessarily a hard and fast thing, but we were within that range, which made me feel a little bit more comfortable. And if anybody wants to see that, it's right here. You can see it. I can also send it. I
You
don't
send it to
know if
me.
I can send it to Mrs. Warrington.
Hence why you were nominated, by the way.
I guess I would say this is when I think about last year, it was kind of really easy to segue, separate a little bit, council and mayor. And with council, I kind of did that same thing, but because we got rid of that $80 per meeting thing, it was a little bit difficult to really say like what was the difference, but it seems to me that we are much more in line and less burdensome on our resources. So I don't know if anybody else has a thought on that. It looks like they're for councils. If I just look overall, that's including part-time, it's like 2.65 is generally what I'm seeing there. If that is helpful to anyone.
I mean, even just looking at these comparable cities, like our city council is still low. I mean,
Yeah.
they make a little more than Linwood, which is a pretty comparable city. But I don't think I think there's a little more movement to make there.
Does the city council normally get 4% as well as, or is it kind of been a historically, would they historically get whatever not what we decide, but just what's historically what it. 'Cause
Well,
last
we
year
do
kinda-
decide it though.
We treated
Yeah.
a little different last year, but
Yeah.
in
Mhm.
general, I guess, what's historically.
Generally, the last few years was to go with the CPI, given the non-represented staff, which would have been the 90% of CPI.
Mhm.
However, that history I only have is for the last like 3 years. Before that, I can do some research to see what the increases looked like, and pull a report from payroll if you're interested in that information.
Kind of intrigues me, but it's Ben, right?
Bane, yeah,
Ben,
yeah.
what is it?
It's okay, it's okay. It's
Um,
Bane.
Bane?
Mhm.
All right. Why are we a commission member, Bang?
Yeah.
You're so involved in the city. Do you know anything historically about the city council and how it's been treated? I know you were a COVID appointee so
I
in the last.
do not know,
Okay.
no. But it would be interesting to know.
Yeah, kind of. I don't want to put more work on you.
It's okay.
This 4% seems, well, we gave them 4% last year. I don't see any reason why a mayor and council wouldn't get that this year. I don't foresee anything because like you said, as you pointed out, Council Commissioner Hort, they seem to be just a smidge low, but I think given our current climate, we're still waiting on stuff to be built. And we do have Costco now. We won't see the full revenue on that for another year or two, if I recall. There's
I
something,
believe we're getting it now.
is it?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's going better than we
Oh.
projected.
I love it and my
Yeah.
kid works there. It's.
Yeah, yep, so,
Huge fan.
but I think last year, yeah, it was mentioned that it would be a couple years out before we saw that.
Before we.
Yeah.
The full
advertise.
effect.
The full
right?
effect.
Yeah.
because of
Yeah.
The offsets that we provided, but, yeah, I love the Costco.
Okay. So anyway, I'm just kind of spitballing here. It just doesn't, 4% doesn't seem out of line, so I don't know.
Mhm.
This, I guess for the council, just because we don't have that historical data and doesn't seem out of line to figure it out, if it's not too big a burden for you.
I will ask our payroll to just pull me some reports from like January 1st of every year, maybe, and
Just
Just for-
see.
and then maybe do
Maybe
a
like
quick calculation.
2017 or so-ish.
Okay, 2017 or something.
I don't think we need to go back. tremendously.
No,
far,
if I
yeah.
remember history correctly, I think there was a couple years where they didn't get an increase, so. I could be making that up.
And
So
so
it'll be
that's what
good.
the meeting per meeting thing came, like
Yeah.
that's because that was such a interesting
Way to compensate.
do
people.
it.
And
Yeah,
it's-
agreed.
Well, and I think that I think the thought behind that was to ensure that they were being held accountable and there was transparency.
Yeah,
Mhm.
But I know how much of a strain it was on the city's payroll and accounting department
Yeah.
because.
And on them to do it. when
And
they have
on them
full-time
to
jobs
do
and
it,
everything else.
exactly.
$80
Yeah.
bucks, I don't,
Exactly.
not gonna bother.
Yeah,
Right.
I do think it would be interesting to see historically just what the increase was to see if it's way out of line. Like, does it tend to be different than the mayor?
Sure. I agree.
well, even last year it was different, right? 0.5% lower, but we made it easier for them.
Yeah.
We guaranteed that income. Yeah.
Well, and I think that, the year I stepped in is when the mayor moved from
Full,
part-time
yeah.
to full-time.
Yeah,
So
Different, yeah.
then we had to look at everything so different.
Yeah.
It wasn't just determining a salary of a part-time, position and how many meetings they would attend, how many events they would be at, what they had to do. It was having to determine what the increase of the job responsibilities were,
And how to quantify that.
Right, and have to go to that. So that it was a lot different when we were determining things from the part-time and then going into full-time for the mayor, but while we still had a part-time city council.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So those are
that's
interesting things to look at too, because I know that over the past couple years since I became part of the commission in 2020, that the visibility of the city council at different events, more events. I know the events that I'm part of outside of this for work, I see Lake Stevens represented all the time.
Mhm.
And so it's good. It's nice to see that even though you guys chose, because I was unfortunately out last year, that you guys chose to get rid of that requirement. I felt like I saw more Lake Stevens representation at Everett City Council, at different large events, nonprofit events, things like that. So that was truly amazing to see. I felt like once you took away that restriction, that it gave them more freedom to feel like they could represent fully and more. So that was really great to see. So
wonderful.
well, thanks for sharing, and also you can take credit for it.
Yeah.
Because if you hated it, you would have written in or something so.
yeah, maybe, but
Just from like a transparency point of view, I am like in line with 4% with the budget, the projected budget.
Mhm.
That from a compensation perspective, it just feels adequate for this year. So, I know we've got a lot more conversation to come, but I am comfortable with the proposed budget and where those conversations are going for those that are also in the city.
Following the
for-
CPI.
Yep, for
Right.
these two positions.
Yeah.
So,
What, do these numbers get updated anytime in the next month or month and a half? Seems like last year, we started out with a number and it got updated. Like a few weeks into this,
That was probably due to time to get it ready for salary commission on my part and then custom research and updating those numbers from last year.
the CPI number.
This year I was able to get everything in time for you guys for your first meeting. The only one that would be updated would be Edmonds if they vote on a new salary.
Mhm. I do recall though, Commissioner Huber, I feel like one of the difficulties was more keeping in line with the budget because the budget was concurrently happening
at this.
with us also doing this.
Right.
I felt like that was a difficulty for me, feeling like, where are we at with that? And their numbers changing. And then kind of trying to just to digest that information as we were doing that. That's what I recall.
Mhm.
Yeah, I also, in doing my research, found out and talking to other salary commissions, I should say, I ran into a couple people that actually on, I'm like, really? That's weird. Not too many of us running.
It's like you have it stamped on
but
your
yeah.
head.
I know.
Yeah,
You have a badge you wear when you're out or?
I do actually, not a, like Stevens Commissioner badge, different badge. But they were saying that, you know, we don't consider the budget. We do what we do and then they fit it to the budget.
Oh,
So
interesting.
we're not that was my understanding from them they go, we don't even, it's not our job to consider the budget. It's our job to consider the salaries, not the budget.
Okay.
We gotta kind of, that's their job, the budget. Our job is to set their salaries, whatever we decide as a representative of the community. So I don't know that we want to delve into that too much
Mhm.
going forward, but I mean, again, there's people that do that. Salary commission, that's their title. So I don't know if we want to conflate the two.
Okay.
Something I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it would be responsible to run us into a deficit in order to make sure that our mayor
Oh,
and our
yeah,
city
yeah.
council are
They still have
paid.
to vote on it.
I mean, you're right. Like, I think that there's some responsibility to look
Absolutely.
at what's projected. And it's still our tax dollars paying
Mhm.
these salaries. So,
Absolutely.
I think it's interesting that folks don't consider that. You just can't run a company like that. I mean,
guess-
yeah, you take risks some years and you mitigate it other years, but I mean, the budget is there for
A reason.
at least referencing reasons.
I agree that we should reference it, but I don't think it should determine where we end up at this point, just because I feel like what I always said when I first started is that we're not talking about the person. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the position and what the position looks like, right? As someone who just completed her budget for work, looking at the budget was really important for me to determine the salaries, but it didn't determine what I felt that the positions were at when I determined the salary of the positions that I was putting into the budget. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So I think we definitely should see what it looks like, projected budget as well as current budget. But I think that, like, I agree that, you know, we need to, it's about the salary commission. We need to determine the salary without, you know, blowing up the budget like you said.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's okay.
And I'm just recalling our conversations last year where, you know, we said all these people work side by side. So do we want to make sure that they're all, that it's within fairness, right? Within the realm of equitable, right? And so if we do something like we do 10% this year and the rest of the city is getting 4%, it brings me right back to those conversations we had last year where they're working side by side. So I think referencing projected budgets and increases for other positions is still a reference point for us.
Kind of going back to the parameters used to create the comparable cities. I recall last year, the recruiting competitor kind of being something that was we were making sure to like really consider because as you had mentioned, Mrs. Warrington, that there were several positions within the city that were very underpaid compared to competition, right? And so that recruiting competitor, make sure that I'm correct in this definition, right? Is like, if we are grossly under, grossly over, like how do the competing cities, like, are we gonna lose staff to them? The attrition kind of related to that, is that fair?
Yes, traditionally, the city had used a comparable model using population assessed value and commutable distances. So we added in, and we changed our model in 2022 to a comparable / competitor model. We
Okay,
hadn't really taken into consideration larger cities, like Everett, for example, because they're just a different
Big animal.
dynamic. They're a different animal, like we can't compete. So we consider them in our salary survey, but just because they are a competitor, so staff will leave because a lot of our staff come from our area. And so we look at commutable distance. And so we kind of realize that we have to consider the salaries of those cities around us, not just the ones that meet our population and assessed value. Because reality is that if you live in Lake Stevens, you're gonna want to work near where you live, and those cities happen to be Everett and Marysville, are two of the larger ones. So Marysville has a pretty healthy salary schedule. They're pretty competitive, and so although we try to compete, reality is that we're not going to hit the high, but we're aiming for around the 60th percentile is the city council's wish for our staff
okay.
using this model.
Interesting. Okay.
This might not be something that would necessarily need to be, that we would need to delve into too much, but would looking at something like, okay, with obviously the rest of the non-com set of people in Lake Stevens got that 6% last year, right? Was there more departures than would have been like historical, in terms of just like, is that something that was enough? Did it keep more people around? I don't know. And that might not be necessarily something to look into, but it's just kind of something of like, are people leaving or not? Were they satisfied with what they got?
Well, it is completely different job market than it was this time last year.
Yeah.
I mean,
very true.
last year we were coming off of, the great war of talent and, record high retention bonuses. And this year you're seeing things a little more stagnant and small. So although I do think it would be worth it to look at retention for this year, right? Because it was effective 1/1.
Yeah.
It's
So
almost like
different that
apples and
it's-
oranges. I don't know that it will
Give
get you
us
what you're
much
looking for.
information.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's my opinion, but
Does anybody else have a thought on that?
I I would find it curious, but I don't know what role it would play in our salary commission role as with the mayor and the city council.
Mhm.
In that we have, that's just a reference for us. I guess the 6% or the 4% this year would be just a reference for us in setting the mayor and the city council. I am curious what kind of retention we've had. I don't know that it would play in any
Yeah.
role in our,
That's the hard part. I want to make sure it's relevant to what we're
I
doing.
don't know if it is, I guess.
I wouldn't necessarily feel that it is.
Yeah.
Because we're determining the salary of elected positions, not employees who
Mhm.
apply for jobs, right? So I feel like the retention rate of an employee who isn't held to a term or things like that would
Or
be.
public election.
So
Public
different.
election
Yeah.
would be like, whiskey and water. I
Yeah.
mean, you know what I mean?
No, that's a really
So-
great point. So I think it probably isn't worth delving back, spending time looking at something like that.
Yeah.
Perfect.
But it would be interesting.
Yeah, all of it's interesting.
So I do want to make sure, we're kind of moving things along. Is there any information? I think that what I have written down is kind of looking at the council data back to 2017 to just see historical increases.
Mhm.
But is there any information that we feel like we're missing or information we would want to consider so that we can, most appropriately move forward with all of our discussions?
Not off the top of my head, I think Ms. Worthington put together a great packet this year.
Yeah, I don't see anything we're missing. I think this is a lot of information. I think it's great information, and I really do think we have enough information to make great decisions when it comes to recommendations.
Can you just remind me when the budget is supposed to be finalized?
It's usually end of November, beginning of December.
Okay,
Which is like our
Yeah,
last.
we have-
yeah, which by the time.
Right.
However.
Last year it was December 1st.
Yeah.
Public hearings start.
Yep.
Later,
And-
so they'll have to have decisions made before public hearing pretty much, and then they just don't, formality is that they sign the ordinance usually in end of November.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
And the preliminary budget is already out,
Yes.
correct? Yeah.
Yes,
You said one more
I can-
working session
I can-
tomorrow?
yes.
Okay.
And I can confirm that. really quick. Okay. So the schedule right now is public hearing number 1 will be on property taxes and revenue sources on October 24th. And then public hearing number 2, preliminary budget hearing is also on the 24th.
Oh, it's gonna be a jam-packed meeting.
And then.
It's gonna be a good one,
so
guys.
it's
Everybody
different-
attend.
It's a public hearing for both. It'll be.
Yeah.
Right after another.
Mhm.
And then the final public hearing will be. Looks like the 14th of November with budget adoption, if all goes well. And if needed, a final public hearing or continuation of a public hearing would be on November 28th.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're looking at mid-November in best case scenario, end of November, worst case
Worst case.
scenario.
Okay.
Okay, that's
And
helpful. Thank
We need
you.
to have numbers by the 1st of December, right?
Well, it's up to you. We'd like to.
Remind me, I know there was there was some sort of day amount of days that we had to have it in by.
So whatever the decision is in the motion by the salary commission and the filing of this new salary, it'll be 30 days after that would be the implementation date or the
Mhm.
effective date. So we always aim for right in the beginning of December, so it's easy for payroll to just start the new salary January
January
1 or the first workday in January.
And I also recall we need to have a public hearing.
Yes.
Right? And what is the notification time for that public hearing?
It's about a couple weeks.
A couple weeks. Okay. 2.
Mhm.
I just want to make sure kind of working backwards a little bit. We'll make sure we're
Mhm.
on track. Okay. So if we have December 1st is a Friday, just looking at a calendar, kind of moving on, sorry, on the agenda in terms of scheduling future meetings.
Mhm.
If December 1st is a Friday, 2 weeks back from that is Friday, the 17th. It kind of seemed like, I would say, based on the survey, that Mondays were better. I don't know if Wednesday, I thought I saw Wednesdays were also kind of up there, but I'm not sure. Anybody is there any like no day for anybody?
Unfortunately, I am traveling a fair amount in November. I'm
Okay.
traveling like from the 6th through the 17th.
Okay.
So, I will ask to be excused if we have any activity during that time.
Okay.
So, you don't have to work around me, for those 2 weeks.
Do you want to maybe meet either, like maybe the beginning of November, and that way you leave some cushion
For another
in
meeting?
case you have to have another meeting, or the end of October?
Yeah,
That's the day, right?
today's the 9th.
Is it?
Yeah,
Ninth.
And I do have some flexibility that Monday and Wednesday while I'm traveling where I could call in virtually, but I would not be available on Tuesdays.
okay. Does anybody else have a absolute no day that Tuesdays would never work or anything like that? Okay,
I don't think so.
And I mean, I think we do need to meet again before public meeting.
Oh,
Okay,
absolutely.
okay.
Yes, 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 yes.
And just,
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't think we're
No, I
anywhere near being ready for that. Yeah.
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 I think I agree with that.
Okay.
What my thought would be is looking at the end of October, so the week of the 30th of October, right, goes into that first week of November. I would think a meeting around there. I know obviously Halloween, I would be out, would not be able to meet, which is a Tuesday,
I'm in Chicago.
that whole week,
I leave Tuesday morning. so
Tuesday morning.
I could meet Monday
Monday is unavailable for this
on the
room.
30th.
Mm-hmm. They have, oh,
The 23rd or 30th, I can do those two.
I know your work calendar.
So I think I can, I should say.
the 23rd would be really tough because I'm leaving for vacation this week and I'll be getting back on the 22nd. So I won't have time to prepare any other additional information.
Okay,
Okay.
So maybe we need to look at that first week in November.
30th.
when you are traveling, Commissioner Huber, is there a chance that you would have availability to call in, or is it kind
that
of,
On the nights. Yes.
are you in the same time zone or?
I'm in Chicago.
Okay.
wherever that is.
2 hours ahead.
Mhm.
That means at 4 o'clock, I gotta.
No, it would be 8 o'clock. for a
o'clock, yeah.
6
Oh,
o'clock
that's what I
meeting.
wanna do, 8 o'clock and.
You should be on a rooftop at that point.
Sorry, are you gone the 30th, the 31st and first?
I'm
or you're
available
gone
the
that whole-
30th.
Right, this room's not though.
Mhm.
Oh, is that what you said? I thought it
Yeah.
was.
It's not available.
Is
Oh.
there
Yeah.
a?
We could use the conference room up there.
Okay,
It's snug-ish.
I mean, we're not
There.
large, right?
1, 2.
6
Yeah.
at most.
Yeah, it would be, it's like.
Oh,
long-
but we have to allow public, right? If
Public.
they want to come and listen.
Potentially we could use Public Works Conference Room.
Okay.
Actually, that might work at the Public
Okay.
Works shop down the street. They have a larger table that we could spread out at.
What about
That.
Wednesday, November 1st?
He's gonna be gone.
Oh, that's right, you leave.
Hmm.
Get some pizza and some coffee.
If you want to meet the 30th, I can try to find an alternate room
Okay,
and we can.
it
list that as-
seems like the 30th would be kind of like the
Ideal.
prime time,
Yeah.
yeah. To me, just because then we also, if we're like, wow, we've got to jam pack in 2 or 3 more meetings, we have that available, like flexibility.
Agreed.
Okay, so does this time work best for everybody?
Which works.
I mean, it worked for me today.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, let me make sure that I'm not.
I think
Not saying
you're
it.
the one that
Yeah.
travels, right? Commutes out.
Well, I just have small children.
Oh.
So I need somebody to be home.
Yep.
Mm,
I'll bring them along.
I almost did.
I'll-
My husband got stuck in traffic and I was like, well, we have snacks and
You can
we can
pick
sit
them up.
down because they are part of the public.
Yep.
Give them an
It's
iPad,
true.
and sit them down.
I think I can do 6 if knowing that my husband might have to come here to pick them up at some point. I mean, they're pretty self-sufficient in terms of if I tell them to sit down and I give them something to look at, they'll be fine. So I think 6 is fine for me. I can make that work. So let's tentatively say we're gonna go shoot for October 30th at 6 o'clock. Hoping that there's an alternate room.
Yes.
And as you mentioned, Commissioner Horde, all of these meetings are open to the public, and even if we're in that smaller spot right up there, is like the recording available so that we're fine on that front?
Mhm.
Okay, because I would say based on the attendance, that wouldn't be a huge worry for me that we wouldn't have enough room for all of the public.
You
to
can also
attend.
attend virtually. We could also just have one person in person with me in the conference room and the rest could attend virtually. We've done that before in COVID, so that would be an option as well, but I think we'll all fit
We
in
would
a
all fit.
conference room.
Okay,
Could we schedule another date out? Because I'm noticing that this room is fairly busy.
hot
Oh,
commodity.
I actually appreciate that too.
Yeah, me too.
I'm a planner, so.
Yeah, it would be great if we could just schedule maybe another, like a in case you guys need another meeting before the public hearing, let's get a tentative date in November for
Mhm.
that, and then the public hearing.
Can we do we need any time after the public hearing, right? I know we need time in case there is a big epiphany that happens, right, for us to meet. But there's no requirement between when we can have the meeting and sign in our recommendation.
Yeah, typically it's in the same meeting.
Okay,
I will say that I typed up these minutes and I reviewed the last year's public hearing meeting, and that one lasted quite a long time because there was deliberation after the public hearing. And you made a change in your decision.
Yes.
And then you passed it.
And then
And you did
it
that
had to
that
be
meeting.
retyped up, right, in order for the chairperson to sign
Sign it.
and
Yeah.
to file.
Yes, and that worked out last year. If you needed to schedule another meeting, the only thing that would happen would be, it would be effective January 15th, or it would be a little
Okay.
bit later, and that's okay too, if you need more time,
Mhm,
so. But I haven't seen that happen yet.
okay.
Could do the 13th. It's another Monday.
Well,
I
she's out till the 17th and not available, right? Commissioner Horde?
I could call in
Yeah, you said
on
Monday. and
Monday or
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Okay.
The 13th, I will be East Coast time, so
If we can
so
use
hopefully
it
it
for
doesn't
that.
go for more than 2 hours, like, let's just say that.
Would one of those days be better for you, just if you're the one that has to call in? Like, is Wednesday a little bit more open or Monday a little more open?
Probably Wednesday would be better for me, because I have an early morning that Tuesday, so thank you for that
Yeah.
future thought.
Is
So-
Wednesday all right in your guys' schedules?
It's not available in this room again.
Oh, man.
Monday is,
Mm.
This room.
I know.
And to have a quorum, you need 3?
Yes.
Okay.
And virtual still counts for the quorum,
Yes.
correct? Okay.
The 13th is not a hard no for me. So
Okay.
if it works for the rest, I
Yeah.
can make it work.
We can always schedule the 13th and then see what it's like being in there. If we feel like that's not something that we want to move forward, being in a different room. Right? If that's kind of like our,
No, but this room's available on the
on the
13th,
13th.
right?
Yeah, but if we see in there and we're like, hey, this is fine, and we want to move it to the 15th, we would have that option. We would just kind of know, right?
Okay.
Either way, going
Well, it
forward.
depends on how much time we need for public notice, right?
We should be fine if
Okay.
the 15th as well.
Okay, so should we do 13th at 6 o'clock?
And then do we need to schedule
The public
something
meeting.
in between, just in case.
just in case,
I
because
think those are that was the just in case one.
Oh,
But,
okay, so
I
now
mean,
we're
unless
scheduling
you
the,
think it's gonna take you 2 more meetings.
So,
okay, so we've got the 30th. And then I'm sorry, I thought we were talking about the public hearing on the
Yes.
15th.
No,
public hearing on the first.
Oh, okay.
27th,
27th, okay.
just every 2 weeks from now,
Oh,
Oh,
okay,
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Great.
you guys think?
Yeah,
Public-
I feel like a public hearing on a Friday is a little
Yeah,
difficult too, right?
we want to be here on a Friday.
Is this
Mhm.
room available
to
the
bed.
27th?
Yes,
27th,
yes.
all right?
Okay, cool.
So 27th is our tentative
Public hearing,
public hearing, okay.
and then we're done for another year.
Okay.
They're ready.
Well, please let me know if you guys need any other information before our next meeting. I'll try to get the packet put out like Friday. If our meetings are on Mondays, I'll get it out on Friday. And I will be on vacation from Thursday this week through the 22nd, so the 12th through the 22nd.
Excellent. Good for you.
Yes. Alrighty. Yeah, I think the sooner the better, right? If there's any other information that we feel like we would like to have. And at this point, unless there's anything else anybody would like to bring up. I think I can, let's see what the time is, call the meeting at 7:04.
We need a motion.
Need a motion to call, to adjourn. the
I
meeting.
move, I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
I second. Ooh,
That was a tie.
Who,
I don't care. We both said it.
all in favor?
I,
Meeting adjourned at 7:04 PM.
nice job.
We're meeting on the 30th or
guys
the
really put me on the
13th.
Man, the record.
I knew it was coming.
Was this discussed
No.
beforehand?
I knew it wasn't gonna be me.
But hopefully, I mean, we're not aware that Michelle's not gonna be able to make any